Hey, how you doing? Steve Noble, Noble Moto. We got our 2012 883 iron up here on the lift today, and I'm doing some fork seals on it. But while we're doing fork seals, we're going to repack the steering bearings or the neck bearings on this thing. Mark Young of Clovis Lubricants reached out to me and wanted me to try some Amsoil products. So he sent me some Amsoil synthetic water-resistant grease. Should be the right thing for those neck bearings. So we're going to take them out of there. We're going to clean them off with some Amsoil parts cleaner, because apparently they sell parts cleaner. I didn't know this. And then we're going to repack them with some new grease, so it'll help get any dirt out of there. Any moisture may have creeped in there over the years of riding in the rain. So the new grease should lubricate everything really well and protect it and keep all the moisture out, especially since it's water resistant. After I repack the bearings full of grease, we're going to put the thing back together, and I'm going to torque everything to spec, and I'll run through the proper assembly and torque procedure for the neck bearings on a motorcycle. Specifically for the Sportster, but pretty much all of the bikes are about the same. So, we'll cover that too. Now, if you are interested in purchasing any Amsoil products, or checking out Amsoil in general, you can go to the link in the bio. That'll take you to Mark's website. From there, you can actually use their vehicle search and see what they offer that actually fits your vehicle. That way you know you're getting the right stuff. And you can see just everything else they offer. There's a lot of detailing products out there now, a lot of other support lubricants, car care stuff apparently they're selling now. This is awesome. I was unaware of this until Mark contacted me. And in addition, you could become a qualified preferred customer, or a QPC. And honestly, looking at some of the prices on there, you'll actually save money for the first year if you actually become a qualified preferred customer. So that's pretty cool. It'll actually save you money to join. How cool is that? And yeah, they have free shipping over $100. They have reduced pricing for the QPCs. Yeah, and if you spend up to $500 a year, the membership is actually completely free. There's a bunch of discounts. I'm not going to plug them all. You can read. Go on their website. Check it out. It's good stuff. You know Amsoil is a good product. They've been around forever. They're the OGs in the industry, and they're very, very well known in racing. If you're interested, go to the link below, click on it, go see what they have. But enough yakking about oil. Let's move over the front end of the bike. Let's take it apart. In order to remove the front fender on this 2012 883 Sportster, we are going to take a 1/4-inch Allen wrench. That'll hold the bolt there. Then a 1/2-inch drive wrench on the back, a ratcheting wrench. And we're going to remove the 4 fender bolts. Now remember, when you take the last one out, this fender is going to fall. And most of us don't like to get scratches on our paint job. So it doesn't hurt to leave one other bolt sitting in a hole just to hold it in place. That way you can properly hold on to the fender and not drop it. From here, move over the other side. And you can remove these 2 bolts. Same scenario. All right. Now, slide that bolt out of there just like so. Carefully lift your fender up. Slide it forward just like that. Put it in a safe location. To remove your brake caliper, you have these 12-point bolts on there. It's going to take a 10mm 12-point socket. It means there's 12 points in there versus a 6-point socket. Yes, I said 10mm. That's metric. The brakes are made by Brembo, an Italian company. But break both of them free. Thread them right on off of there. Pretty straightforward task. Hold on to your caliper so it doesn't fall. And these bolts are the same size, but it never hurts to keep them in order. So I don't think it'll hurt anything if you don't. Slide it right on out of there. Ding! That's how you take your brake caliper off. Now's a good time to check your brake pads. They are in pretty good shape, so we're good to go there. And then we can just let the front brake caliper hang. You can let it hang by the front brake cable. Some people don't like to do that. You can also set it there on your jack. That's what I'm going to do. To loosen the nut on the left side of your motorcycle, it's going to take a 5/16 wrench and whoop, lefty-loosey that thing free. You can take the nut off of there. Don't take it off all the way. Just thread it way back right about to there. From there, move over the other side and break those bolts free. From here, you can break the clamp bolt free. It's going to take a 5/16 Allen wrench and then 9/16 wrench on the nut. You don't actually have to take this thing off of there. Well, to do the fork seals, you do. But to get the... Holy crap, that was way too tight. To get the front wheel off, you can just loosen this. But we're going to take it all the way off of there because we have to get up in here to change the fork seals out. So slide that off of there. Put all your hardware back on your bolt so you can keep track of it. Now that this nut is free, the hardware on the other side's free, you can tap the axle out. You really should use a soft face mallet. If you don't have one, put something soft there like a piece of wood. You don't need a hammer this big. I just have one this big. Once it's loose, once it moves back in there a little bit, you can thread the nut off. You do that to ensure you don't damage the threads on the end of this shaft. Now, this part is very important to pay attention to detail. Because you have a washer in here, you have a spacer here, and you have a spacer on the other side. And all those need to go back on in the same order. So, slide the axle out the rest of the way. Set the axle in clean location. Then roll the wheel back and be ready to catch both those washers, those spacers. Dun dun. Then we're going to install those onto the front axle in order. Take this washer there, install that in order, thread the nut on. That way everything is still in order when we go to put it back on the motorcycle. Set this in a clean location. From there, you can lift your front wheel right on up out of there. To remove your forks, you're going to want to remove these two bolts here, and then you'll be able to slide the fork on out of there. Take your T45 Torx bit. Break those free. Now, you can break this one free. Whoops, and it slides right down like that. From there, if it doesn't want to move, which that one slid right out of there, but either way, we're going to take some of our Amsoil Metal Protector aerosol lubricant. We're going to find a rag. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to wipe all the crud off of there. Whoops. Then we're going to give a little bit of lubricant here. The idea is, especially if these forks are corrodal, it will slide out of there a lot easier. Also, less chance of just scratching up the chrome and stuff too, if you smear that stuff around. Then from there, you can slide the fork out of there. If it won't slide out, slide your rubber boot down and grab a hold of the fork. That's still in the shot. Grab a hold of the fork and twist it. There we go. If you grab a hold of the fork slider down here, what's going to happen is this will stay in place and the fork slider will just spin because the two are separate parts because it moves up and down. So, you can grab it up here, break it free, and slide it right down on out of there. To take the handlebars off, you're going to need a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. Break these free. Now remember, as you do this, it's good to go in a crisscross pattern. And as soon as you get these handlebars free, they're going to want to flop down and they might want to ding your tank. So, be careful. Before you start, it's a a good idea to cut your zip ties off. Now we got a little more wire to work with. I forgot to add that in there. So, from there, you can take your handlebars up and out of there. Should hopefully be able to lean them on down carefully, set them off to the side. Remember, they're hanging by the wires, so make sure they aren't too heavy. Make sure nothing's getting a weird side loaded or anything. Then from there, if you can see it, there's a bolt right here. There's a bolt right there. That's going to take your headlight bracket off. Honestly, maybe I should have taken that one off first. Once you undo this, all the wires will be able to go forward out of the triple tree. There we go. Headlight goes forward. Speedometer can follow it. Handlebar wiring can go forward. Don't drop whatever it is you just dropped. We still recording? Yes. All right. Wire on this side. Set that one down off to the side. Just carefully set everything down. Pay attention to where it's going, what it's leaning up against. All of the things. Put them all down there. Just like that. It's that simple, right? All right. Move back around to the front. Looks like quite the mess we have here, doesn't it? I promise it's not really that bad. So if your friends walk into the garage right here, they're going to be like, oh my God, what did you do? All right, from here, we can take this top bolt, thread that right up out of there. We already broke it free with our T55 Torx bit. Then from there, we can slide this top one up and the bottom steering stem down. There's that. There's that. We should be able to take our finger, pull that up out of there. There's a little dust seal there on the top of it. And yeah, let's check out these bearings here. The bearings are in pretty good shape, despite not having hardly squat for grease on them. So we're going to wash them out. We're going to check out the inner races there. Inner races are nice and smooth. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to run these through run some solvent through these bearings. And these seals are in pretty good shape. Bottom one should slide right up and off of there. So we have our seals and our bearings up here. Got our Amsoil brake clean. So put some eye protection on. Let's give them a good blast to clean them off. You can see some of the dirt coming out of there. And blast off the seals while we're at it. There we go. Set these off to the side in a clean location. Do the same with these bearings. There's a lot of crud on these ones. That looks pretty good. That stuff works really well. Okay, so we've got our Amsoil synthetic water-resistant grease here. So what we're going to do, once these are all nice and dry, we're going to take this grease. First, we'll just smear a little on the outside. Then we're going to push it in. Let's go around and push it in first. This is going to cover the outside. Some people like to start with pushing in from the inside. Whatever, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But then from there, what we're going to do is we're taking this grease and we're smushing it into this groove here on the back. See that groove right down in there? So what we're doing is we're going to smear it down in there and push it forward. And what you're doing when you do this is you're pushing the grease forward into the rollers, and it should start coming out the other side. So just keep pushing in there. Make sure your hands are nice and clean, that you're not getting extra dirt in there. Some people wear rubber gloves while doing this. Never a terrible plan. You can even give it a little rotation as you do it. See, we don't have anything oozing out the front here yet, so we're going to give it a little bit more. There, now it's starting to come out the front. All we're really trying to do is just push all the grease up through the bearing. Up through all the bearing rollers. Hence the fact it's a roller bearing. Now they do make special tools to do this that you can put the bearing on and press it and it greases it. I don't own one of these things. So we're just going to keep doing it this way. Just keep going around. Work that in there. Same people will do it here in the palm of their hand. Kind of do this and keep working it up in. Also a valid technique. So we're going to take our steering neck and our new seals. Slide our seal down there. Then take our bearing and slide it right down into place. Now I took some of that excessive grease that was on my hand and I wiped it all over this shaft, or the neck, or the steering shaft, whatever you want to call it. There's no contact with this. It was simply for rust preventative. So I just smeared a big film of it all over this thing. That way if any moisture gets in this thing at any one point, this shaft won't rust. And therefore, it'll keep rust from getting in the bearings. And if down the road we have to replace these neck bearings again, or whenever that day comes, you'll easily be able to get the bearings on and off the shaft. This thing won't be all rusted and pitted up. So to reinstall your steering bearings, your neck bearings, slide this in from the bottom. Take your new bearing and your seal, slide that in from the top. It should slide right down on there. There we go. That should slide into place. You should be able to push it in there and feel that the slop is taken up. Now the catch is you can't really let this thing go because it's covered in grease, so it's going to fall out. So make sure you have everything staged out. Here's the top of our triple tree, or a triple clamp. I'm going to slide that in place right there. Then we're going to take our big nut here that goes on the top of this and thread this in there. We don't have to thread in tight. It's okay because we've got grease all over our hands. We're going to thread in as far as we reasonably can. Then we'll go get the tools. We're going to run that nut in the rest of the way. Now from here, we can put the handlebars back on. So we'll cut our zip tie that was holding everything in place. Throw that to the side. Bring our handlebars back around. Untangle the mess you just made. I really did make a good mess there, didn't I? Wait a minute. Yes, untangle the mess you made. Roll them back around all the way around there. There we go. That was a little disorganized, but we got it done. Lay our wires down in there. Lay these wires in there. The front brake cable is going to go through the middle. Throttle cable will go the outside. So from there, I can take my speedometer, slide that up the top like so there. Then I can take my speedometer or top clamp bolts and start these in here. I was saying we can run all these down in here. These should thread in nice and smooth. They shouldn't fight you at all. And you want to tighten these up the best you can in a crisscross pattern. Just like this. And get your handlebars in place. Here, I'll turn it there so you can see it. The handlebars in place. And start snugging the bolts down. There's no need to put Loctite on these. If you torque them down, you should have nothing to worry about. There. So for now, we're just going to snug all these up until we get the forks in place. Now, from here we can take our headlight up, put it behind our clutch cable, slide the headlight bracket in place, then take our bolts right here and thread these into the headlight bracket. And we can take our 1/4 inch ball end Allen and zip those down in there. Alright, both lightly snug. Now we can torque both of those down. Now we can take our fork tubes. Have your T45 ready. Slide your fork tube up through the lower triple clamp, up to the top triple clamp. I'm going to turn this to the side here so hopefully you can see it. So if you can see right here, see how there's like a little bevel there? What we're going to do is we're going to set that bevel, the bottom of that bevel, right at the top of the clamp so it sticks up just a wee little bit. Then we're going to snug up the bottom bolt. Not torque it, just snug it up. Then do the other side. Same scenario. Put the bottom of that bevel right at the top of the top clamp there. Snug both those up. Now from here, we're going to torque the neck bearings to 27 foot-pounds. Right there. And you still should have movement here. Shouldn't be tight. Maybe the wee faintest bit of resistance. But most importantly, it should be tight. If you grab the bottom of your forks and push them in and out, you shouldn't get any clunking motion or anything like that right there. You can tighten down this pinch bolt, which is also a T45 Torx bit. Once you run it in. Take your T45 Torx bit and torque each one of these clamp bolts down. You're going to want to tighten these fork pinch bolts to 30 to 35 foot-pounds. Now, to torque these down, run them in until they're all slightly snug. Just enough it holds the handlebars in place. You can check side-to-side location, all that jazz. Then, torque these down. You're going to want to torque this 12 to 18 foot-pounds. When you do it in a crisscross pattern. So we're going to do that one. And we're going to do that one. Actually, don't even torque them yet. We're going to do this one. And then this one. And you have to make sure you run these down evenly. If the top clamp goes crooked, say you run the bottom two in first, the clamp will go crooked, the bolts will side load in the hole. And then when you tighten the other ones up, it's just tightening against that side load of the bolt and not actually clamping down the handlebars. And then your bars move, generally at the worst possible time, probably while going down the road. In order to put it back on here, we're going to throw that wrench on the ground. And we are going to turn the fork straight and roll this wheel back on in there. Whoops, hit the camera. And for starters, we're just going to roll that back in between the fork tubes. And now you can't see anything, so now I'll move the camera shot. Okay, so first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put these spacers back in place. Hopefully you kept track of which one goes where. On this bike, skinny spacer goes on the right side of the motorcycle, fat spacer goes on the left side of the motorcycle. So we are going to position the fork straight, then we're going to take the spacers and we're going to, with the wheel slightly rolled forward, I hope you can see that. There we go, that's a much better shot. So we have a spacer on each side of the bearings right now, and then we're going to roll the wheel back in here, and it's going to have to roll in perfectly straight. Our forks are going to have to be nice and lined up, and it just barely fits down, it fits in there. So it's like a perfect fit. If you have any misalignment going on, it's not going to fit. So that alignment there is very critical. Now we have our front axle here. Now our front axle, I put a nice little coat of grease on this. You want to do that because not only does it help lubricate it as it gets put through there, but it also helps keep the moisture out so the bearings won't rust to the axle. We definitely don't want that. Some people use Never Seas, and that's fine. I just use general purpose grease because it works. Alright, so now we're going to put the axle in. You want to make sure everything is nice and perfectly lined up. You don't want to have to force this because if you put any burrs or damage on this, it's not going to go in, it's going to bind up on the way through there. It's a very precision fit. So you might have to pick the wheel up a little bit. Keep in mind where all your spacers are. And it should just slide all the way through. Give it a peek around the other side. You might have to wiggle it a little bit to get that alignment. But when you do, there it goes. Slides all the way through there. Now you're going to slide it all the way in until it stops. And that's good right there. Now, we're going to move the camera over to the left side of the motorcycle and put the lock nut on there, or the axle nut. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to put our washer back on there, then we're going to put our nut on. Now when you put this on, you're going to see one side is tapered and one side is squared off. Make sure you put it on squared off side first. Now with the tapered side, it sticks out. Sometimes that's just for appearances, sometimes that means it has a little bit of a locking ring on there, inside the threads. This one's just for appearances, but still. So, on the right side of the motorcycle, we're going to take an Allen wrench and we're going to stick it through the hole in the axle. That's to help hold it all in place. Now I've got my torque wrench here. It doesn't have a socket on it yet. I've got my ratcheting torque wrench here and a 15/16 socket. My torque wrench is set to 55 foot-pounds, as the service manual calls for the torque for the front axle. So we're going to torque it down until it goes clunk. Right there. There it goes clunk. So now we know the axle is torqued to spec. From there, we can go back over the right side of the motorcycle and tighten down the pinch bolt. Okay, we're over here on the right side of the motorcycle. We have tightened down our axle pinch bolt. We have a 5/16 Allen wrench here. I happen to have a T-handle Allen wrench. Then we have a 9/16 socket. And we're going to tighten this up. This is a ratcheting torque wrench. So I can just ratchet it until it's tight. And then you're going to torque this to approximately 27 foot-pounds. Right there it clicked. And that's good. your front wheel is reinstalled. Now all we have to do is put the fender bolts back on and reattach the brake caliper. So since we're over here, next thing will be to reinstall the 2 fender bolts and reinstall the nuts on the back of the fender bolts. I have a ratcheting wrench on here. I'm sure there's a Torx spec for this, but the fender bolts, just tighten them up. Tighten them up till it all feels like it stops. Make sure it's good and tight, but you don't have to kill it. Oops. Make sure your wrench is on there before you tighten everything up firmly. There we go. Now let's put the brake caliper back on. Next thing we're going to do is reinstall our brake caliper. Make sure our pads, well, now's a good time to check the thickness of your pads, and these are good. Make sure they're in position so the gap of the rotor is in between the 2 pads. Slide that over top the brake rotor there. Then line up your bolt holes. And on some years, you're going to have different length bolts. On this 12 Sportster, both bolts are the same length. Now we're just going to run both these in here until they stop. And then we'll go back and snug them up. Then we'll torque them to spec. All right, so they're on there. And take our 10mm 12-point socket. Run these in until they're snug. Snug up the bottom one, snug up the top one. All right, and we're going to torque these to spec. Service manual calls for 32 to 38 foot-pounds. Put your 12-point socket on there. Tighten them up till they click. All right, there you have it. We're ready to go ride. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Give your front brake lever a pump a few times to make sure your pads are reseated. And we are good. Now, you take your bike off the jack, and you're ready to go ride. That's all I got.